Hey everybody, this is Jay. This is Rantburgers on the Voluntary Virtues Network. This is a group of people who are making videos to promote the cause of liberty. I'm here to, give you my opinion and talk to you about liberty, talk to you about freedom, because that's just what the internet needs. Another person, another internet nerd libertarian ranting at his computer. Yay! I hate the term sheeple. Sheeple implies that there are those of us who get liberty and those who don't get liberty, and never the twain shall meet. To me, the whole philosophy of liberty is a humanist philosophy. The idea that all people are, that each person is a good thing. Each person has rights inherent in them because of their human nature, and that human nature is a good, and that humanness about them is a good thing. I can't understand people who claim to be libertarians and then bitch and cry and whine about the sheeple. Because if there is such a thing as sheeple, then you've got two different kinds of humanity living on this planet, and the idea of sheeple is that some people can't handle it. I think there are people who are culturally not prepared to deal with freedom yet. Emotionally, they are not prepared to deal with it yet. But I don't think this makes them, by their nature, unable to be free or unable to understand what's good about freedom. And it has always confused me, because it seems to me to be a natural step from, if there are a group of people who will never understand freedom and who will never desire freedom and who will never be free, then how could you be libertarian? How could you want freedom for them? It seems like an extremely cynical and depressing and unhappy philosophy to me. So when somebody says sheeple, I think fascist, because really, if there's such a thing as a sheeple, then you have the rulers and you have the ruled, and that's what you got. And if you posit a third type of person who just doesn't want to play part in it, there'll never be enough of them to actually be free. In order for freedom to work, we have to live in a culture of freedom and a society of freedom. And that means we have to have a lot of people on board. And we're a long way from that right now. But the concept of sheeple, I think, pushes us further away. And here's one of the things that I'm going to be doing a lot on this program, on this block of time, is I'm going to be waving my hands and yelling semi-coherently, and then I'm going to point you at somebody who knows more than I do. I'm going to say, at this point, go listen to the Bad Quaker podcast. Ben Stone, the Bad Quaker, gets it very well. I also quite like Keith Kelso on Facebook there. But what they're saying is, the state lives in the mind of the people. Our society is an emergent property of the mindset of the people in it. Okay, so a lot of people walk around thinking they're people things, and then you get peopleness out of it. And then when you see the big picture, what you're really seeing is what the thoughts of the people doing that accrete to. Hand gestures. Those are free for you. You don't pay any extra for that. So our statist society comes from a statist point of view. People believe they need the state. People believe that keeps them safe. People believe that that's the only organizational tool that can work. And that's why there's a state, because there's a market for the state. If there were no market for the state, it would it would dry up and blow away. At least the state as we think of it now. I mean, there's things that the state does in a very bad way or claims to do that people want done. You know, whether or not technology will keep us on roads in the foreseeable future, if a road's a good thing, then that's the road being a functional thing. We don't need the state to come and build us a road, but statists think there will be no roads without the state, right? Who's going to build the roads? So protection and safety, those are products. Those are things people want. We don't need the state to provide them, but people think we do. And so when you scare somebody who thinks the state means safety, what is he going to do? He's going to step back towards the state. He's going to reach for the state. The state is his tool for staying safe. When people are frightened, they don't think. Scared people do not think. So scaring people is not in our interest. It does not advance the cause of liberty, because the cause of liberty is about telling people they'll be safe with us, their neighbors. They'll be safe with us, their fellow participants in a free society. And here, in the last 3 days, we've had 3 mass shootings. One of them is just breaking. I haven't looked up the details. Apparently in Forsyth County, Georgia. A nutcase ran into the courthouse and started shooting. There was also a mass shooting in Seattle. A man walked into the Seattle Pacific University, which I've never heard of before. I'm sure it's a great school. But he walked in with a shotgun and shot 3 people, killing 1, injuring both of the others. And when he stopped to reload his weapon, he was tackled and taken to the ground. And then we have the Moncton, New Brunswick shooting. Now, I've already heard people on the Facebook lionizing Justin Bork, or Borke. I've heard people lionizing him as a hero. If we were under oppression from an outside source, say, hypothetically, the Martians come and invade and put their boots on our neck and tell us how everything's going to be, then shooting Martians makes you a hero. But we live in a society where people see the cops as their side. We live in a society where people see the state as their team. And so shooting cops scares them, and they step back towards their safety, the state. Also, the cops are people. They're people who really believe in their state. And so shooting them doesn't really go a long way towards convincing them that we don't need a monopoly provider of security, and that if they wanted to be protectors, they could sell that service on the open market. No, see, mass shootings don't help. They're scary. And the mainstream media grabs whatever's scary and likes to wave it in people's face. Look, ooh, scary, here. Oh, and by the way, buy some soap. Ooh, look, more scary. Is a monster under your bed? Stay tuned. And then you listen, because humans are, we are response and then emotion and then thought. You activate the emotion, you bypass the thought. So if you can make people frightened, you can bypass their defenses of reason pretty quickly. And here's my feline co-star, Sophie the cat. Sophie the cat doesn't care about your freedom because she is a cat. People frightened media. Okay. The media loves to get people frightened because frightened people stay tuned. Frightened people believe what you say. Frightened people are a little more open to the message that's coming right behind you in the soap commercial. So, frightened people will buy your soap. So their commercial interest is to be scary. The other interest that buys past reason is sex. If you buy our soap, you will get laid. Boom, sales. So either monsters coming to get you and our soap will protect you, or if you want to get laid, you need to use our soap. And you see this working with sad and monotonous regularity. But a lot of that is because people are not culturally encouraged to be reasonable these days. People are not culturally encouraged to apply reason as a filter. They're encouraged to feel. And so we live in this weird society where feelings go first and where reason comes second, if at all. So those of us who've come to the idea, hey, you know what? I don't like being treated like cattle. I don't like being treated like a belonging. I don't think that should be done to me, and because it shouldn't be done to me, it shouldn't be done to anybody. So we have this idea of freedom, but it's an idea that rests on thinking, reason. Well, I don't know. For me, wanting to be free is an emotional state. But after that, why I want to be free and why you should be free, that comes from reasoning out just what do I mean by free. So statism lives in the mind. Okay? Mass shooters are not our friends. Mass shooters do not advance the cause of liberty. They advance the cause of fear. They advance the cause of control. Control freaks will tell you, control freaks will come out of the woods and tell you that you need to give up your freedom so we can all be safer. They'll come out of the woods and say, see, this is why we need to be harder on guns, because crazy people took guns and did crazy things. The whole crazy people doing crazy things, not so much. They're not gonna talk about that. But they're gonna talk about the guns, and they're gonna make it about the guns. And really what they're making it about is control. I haven't read any of Justin Bork's writings. I haven't read any of his Facebook page. I haven't really actually looked at much. I skimmed one page that had excerpts from his Facebook page, and you can make anybody look pretty crazy by taking selected pieces off their walls. And I encourage you to do this from my Facebook page. Sorry, my cat is interested in playing, so she's getting on this table next to me here, grabbing stuff and saying, play with me or I'll mess up your stuff. And I'm saying, get off the table. Later on, if I figure out how, I'll edit stuff like that out. This is my first video, so it's going to be pretty rough. Actually, I'm planning on just running this straight through until I get to my time limit and learning how to edit the videos later. Wish me luck. Okay, so we live in a culture where people are inoculated in this, or indoctrinated into statism. They think statism. The way they express themselves is through this statist filter. A few of us have taken a look at this and said, wait, really? I don't like that so much. So we say, hey everybody, statism is a bad idea. And what's the response? Meme complexes. Actually, memes are not photographs with captions on them. That's a later usage. The original idea of memes was actually created by Richard Dawkins, who said he didn't really mean it that much, and it was a metaphor, and relax. But it's an idea of idea as a gene. And you take collections of ideas and they make sort of a virtual creature which lives in the virtual space of the mind. Okay? And so you have different functions for self-defense, for preserving integrity, and for passing the mental gene, the meme, on to the next generation. And it's an interesting metaphor. But one of the things that meme structures typically have is a self-defense pattern. And one of the patterns that says, a meme other than me is wrong. Okay? And I don't know about you. I can tell you all about how to trigger that. I can tell you all about how to invoke that. I can tell you all about how to get somebody really angry so they never listen to anything you have to say again. And I could tell you all about how to find people who think you're stupid and want to argue with you ceaselessly, but who will never actually take their own ideas and put them up on blocks and look at them. I can't tell you much about how to get past that self-defense that the statism idea set has in the mind of any given person. All I can say is you make somebody mad or you make somebody afraid, and they're not going to listen to you. Okay. And so, yeah, we have this condition now where this Justin Borquet scared a lot of people. Those people up there in Moncton, New Brunswick, in that neighborhood, will never be amenable to the message of freedom. That town is completely out of reach to the message of freedom for the next 20, 25, or 30 years. Jason Bork set us back. Okay. Aaron Ybarra, the shooter in Seattle Pacific, he set us back. He hurt people. He scared people. People look at that and go, I don't want that shit. Is that what freedom means? There's another point, and again, I didn't do my research. There was a study based on previous mass shootings. Do a Google search for it. I think you'll be able to find it. And what the guy found out was that the average shooting lasts less than 5 minutes. On the average, the best survival coping mechanism is to run the fuck away, run the darn away. Ugh, I hope that's not out of bounds. Bad words. George Carlin. George Carlin reference, okay. The next best thing is an armed person, or if the shooter runs out of bullets or suffers a malfunction in his weapon, then he becomes vulnerable to a bystander taking him down. The police stop these very rarely. Usually what they do is they come by after the fact, and there may be a second shootout with the shooter. Okay. Even in long events, you can metaphorically cut them apart into, for instance, the Virginia Tech shooter. One shooting incident, then he transitions to another scene, and there's another shooting incident, and then he transitions to another scene, there's another shooting incident. What you see if you look at these things, from a non-emotional perspective, is the police are never there in time to stop them. Even at the Forsyth County courthouse, apparently there were not armed people to stop the guy from running in and shooting. The emergency response team had to turn around from another call, and they showed up very quickly, but they were already moving. So actually, if you're looking at it logically, the best defense against mass shootings is unarmed populace, because you can never tell who's going to be nearby one of these, once in a blue moon events, and when it starts. But when it starts, the people who are there, that's who gets to deal with it. The police will never get there in time to do anything to stop the actual shooting. They may show up in time to catch the shooter, but the Moncton shooting shows they had to lock down the neighborhood and go door to door for about 15 or 16 hours before they found the guy. But you tell people that, you tell people who are in this status mindset, hey, you know what would be real good against these mass shootings? Armed people. And they will go gasp horrors because they don't want to live in a world where there's shootouts on their street. Fact of the matter is, you look at it rationally, these mass shootings are very rare events. The reason why they seem like they are very common events is because of the mainstream news. The mainstream news grabs them and waves them around and runs around like Looney Tunes because that sells the soap. I don't know about you, but conspiracy theories make me feel crazy. Just now, somebody pointed out in relation to that Forsyth, Georgia shooter that I was talking about earlier, that people are questioning the narrative. And that made me think of the Sandy Hook conspiracy theory. The conspiracy theory goes that Sandy Hook didn't actually happen, that an old school was set dressed up as a working school, and they said lots of kids were shot and hired actors to stand around and cry about it. That theory has so many holes in it, it would be hard to count them all. Especially, you're just really throwing Hail Mary passes at the results. I mean, is it imputes a lot more intention into the state than I think it actually has. It also imputes a lot of secret keeping, which I don't see happening really. It just, I'm a skeptic by nature. I enjoy a skeptical worldview, and so I tend to greet claims with a certain amount of show me. And the idea that there are all these sick, sad conspiracies designed to manipulate the public, when you can see conspiracies ranging from sick and sad all the way up to professional and slick, designed to manipulate the public in terms of advertising campaigns. And you can see where they succeed and where they fail. And then you can see what kind of openness there is about them when they succeed or when they fail, and people getting bitter and throwing and going online and complaining about each other about it, or patting each other on the back. You know, it seems like successful projects and colossal failures are much more open than the conspiracy theorists believe that successful projects are in the world of whoever manages these conspiracies. I mean, and can you imagine if that was your job? I mean, you get hired by some shadowy figure and handed a pile of money. We need there to be a shooting in an obscure town. Fake it up, make it look real. And then everybody you'd hire would keep their mouth shut. All the actors you'd hire, and people wouldn't notice a large amount of tourists coming into town and taking up residence. I mean, there's just so many holes here that it starts to look, crazy. And the idea that the world works like that. Now, I talk about they and what they want. I was doing that earlier. I was talking about they. But really, there isn't much of a they. There's a subculture. There's a bunch of people with a similar set of ideas, and they act as though those ideas were true. And even then, anybody who's ever managed a large project can tell you, you get a nice plan, and then you start it off, and on day one there's problems, and you're faking it all through the project trying to solve problems and get things done until you get to the end. And with a building, you try to make sure that every single structural part of that building is done right so it doesn't fall down. I mean, and so far they've done pretty good about it. But in terms of behind the walls where the wiring and where the plumbing went and how everything was done and how it was all tied down and how everything was strung, it turns into kind of a mess. And basically you're hoping, just work until I'm over the horizon. And so you see none of that kind of side effect. You see none of that kind of thing from the conspiracy theories, except, a few people ranting, except a few people ranting, and they don't have any background. There's no third dimension there. So no, I'm not a Sandy Hook truther. I'm not a 9/11 truther. I think that our government did in fact drop the ball, and for political and goofy and I'm lazy and don't want to work hard today reasons, that they fell down on the job and let 9/11 happen. But as for, holograms of airplanes flying into buildings, nah, no. So, hey, you can disagree with me if you want. It's a free country, at least around here. But I I don't like the overlap between the libertarian community, the freedom community, and the conspiracy theory community. And part of it is because I don't like having to explain that I don't believe that stuff. On the other hand, yeah, it's a free country. People got to believe what they want to believe. Why not?